I kind of come back to our whole food philosophy. We really look at how do we help people with a nature first and drugs and surgery last kind of approach. I mean, those would be the last resorts. I mean, you take a look at modern medicine. We're 4% of the population and use 50% of the world's drugs.
In the United States?
Absolutely.
Greg Mitchell is a clinical nutritionist with Center for Champions in League City, where their mission is to help build healthy daily habits that lead to a life well lived. And we definitely learned about some stuff today, Sean.
Oh yeah, we did.
These whole food supplements, super interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
I didn't know the taco analogy is great for one.
Yes.
Like I don't know if that's
Yeah.
one that he just uses or
make sure you timestamp that one. I think it was around maybe like 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, I will definitely.
Yeah.
The taco analogy was great. I wasn't aware that what made the difference between the gap between the cheap supplements and high quality supplements. So yeah, he broke it down for us here and it was a great time for sure.
Yeah. So guys, if you are considering starting any type of supplement routine or you're already on some type of supplement routine and you're curious if it's the best that it could be, definitely make sure you listen to this episode all the way through. Check out Greg, check out Center for Champions. They have tons of tests. We talk about that towards the end of the episode as well. The various types of testing that they do, blood work, hair analysis, and a couple of other tests as well.
There was like a heart palpitation test that they do.
Right.
One where you they test your blood pressure when you're laying down versus when you're standing up.
Yeah, so there's some different tests that they do than maybe what you're used to and have heard of before that can help determine where the gaps are in your nutrition and in your micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals. So guys, listen to this all the way through and enjoy the episode with Greg Mitchell.
So Greg, the way that we like to start the episode is I like to ask everybody what they had for breakfast this morning. So what'd you have for breakfast?
Ooh, breakfast.
I love that reaction. Ooh, that's what I think every time I think of breakfast. Ooh,
Yeah,
breakfast.
Yeah, breakfast. I think it was a hard-boiled egg or something. It was pretty light. But
Okay.
I'm trying to do more of the intermittent fasting kind of thing, where you eat maybe twice a day, and you do a 16-8 or an 18-6 kind of thing for you. You don't eat most of the day. So I've been moving more towards twice a day. Kind of eat around lunchtime, big meal, around dinner time, and then that kind of stuff. And it's supposed to be pretty good for you.
Okay.
From all the research I've read on it, it helps a lot with changing your metabolism and things like that. So,
wow, I used to do some fasting myself, but never really the intermittent as much as maybe one day a week or so. Doing a longer 24-hour or more fast.
Yeah, longest I've done is 3 days.
Wow, how was that?
Yeah. Oh, it's not bad. I mean, typically most people about day 2 is pretty hard because your body's going, hey. Hello.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Where's the food, man?
Yeah,
Come on.
I'm thinking that's these days I think that on like hour or two.
Oh yeah.
I'm starting to hallucinate.
Yeah, into an hour. Like, oh my gosh,
So is a water fast for 3 days?
Yeah, just basically straight water fast. And for do that, the next one in my plan, long-term plan here, I'm waiting for the holidays to get over, but I'd really like to run one 7 to 21 days.
Wow. Why? What's your why behind this?
I really want to drive out. Part of the problem with weight loss and those kinds of things gets in and around the fact that you've got a lot of toxins built up in your body. So people say, "Why? I can't lose weight. I've been going. I go to the gym. I work out. I got and I'm eating, and my weight doesn't move. It doesn't move at all. Is it okay?" And then you start looking at them, talking a little bit, realize their toxic load in their body is huge. And so what happens is your body basically keeps that stuff. It's like taking the garbage out. If you take the garbage out, you take it out every week. And if you do that on a regular basis, you take care of things. But if you don't, you got to put it someplace, right? So if you don't get it out there, let's put it in the garage. So you put it in the garage after a while. All right, the garage is pretty nasty. You don't go out there. So you kind of keep that close. So the body will store those toxins in 3 different places. One is your fat tissue, fat. Another one is your joint tissue, in the joint, the fluids in your joints, rheumatoid arthritis.
Interesting.
Where's that coming from?
Okay.
And then another one's your brain. Crazy stuff. So because the brain has a lot of fat in it, so it's a good place to store it. So your body will put it there until it can find a way to get rid of it. So in a fasting kind of thing or a detox kind of thing, you can really start to clear that out. And so some of it is people have trouble losing weight. They'll try to lose weight, and the body won't open those doors. It won't open the garage, because when it does, it puts all that toxic stuff into your bloodstream. It lets it all out. And so you start to feel bad. And so people go, yeah, I tried fasting. Oh my gosh, headache. I felt awful. It was terrible. What happened? They opened the doors. The toxic stuff got back in your bloodstream. You feel terrible, and you stop. You say, oh, this is not working. I need to go eat. Whoop, close the doors again, get it back in there, and not get rid of it. So if you can get through that and set your processes up so that you can clear that, you get the toxic load out of there and says, okay, now I can burn that fat. Before that fat was toxic storage, now I can actually burn through it, because your body will basically process that fat. It won't process the fat. It'll basically liquefy muscle, during the day and build it at night. And your weight doesn't fluctuate, because you build your protein back, your muscle, and it goes back down and up and down, and your weight doesn't move. And people go, I'm confused why it doesn't work. Well, if you get rid of the toxic load, your body is better able to do the fat burn.
Start fasting tomorrow.
There you go. That's it, man. That'll work.
It's been a while since
I'm fasting right now.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, there you go.
Sean's ahead of the curve. What got you into all this stuff? Have you always been into nutrition since you were very young? Or tell me the story.
Well, actually, early on, very, very, when I was like 3 years old. No, it was actually 1.5 years old. I had celiac really bad. In fact, almost died. And so my mom didn't know what to do with me. I look like one of the, you see the malnourished kids, distended belly, skinny arms and legs. And she's like, I don't know what to do with it. Took me to my grandmother's house. And so my mom took me over there. My grandmother basically kept me for like 3 months and nursed me back to health. Fed me bananas and cheese and and what else? Oh, it was molasses enemas, which is kind of weird.
But I've heard of some enemas before, but not molasses.
Yeah, but blackstrap molasses has a lot of vitamins and minerals in it. That's the stuff they take out of sugarcane to make sugar. So that's what's left over. It's all the good stuff. And so that really kind of brought me back online, and I got back to health and so forth. So that's always been a thing. My mom's always been big in vitamins. And then it was not too long ago that I got involved with, learning about nutrition. Went to work at a nutritional clinic, used business consulting prior to that, and thought, I could take some time and go really learn this stuff. So I said, I'm going to learn to do this. I'm going to get involved with it. Signed up for a master's in holistic nutrition, so I have that. And then I've also been on other training programs, and that really got me interested. And what's so fascinating about it is the human body is an amazing machine. It's absolutely amazing. It's self-healing. It can do all kinds of stuff if you give it what it needs. If you give it the building blocks that it needs. Without the proper nutrition, it's going to do the best it can. And you end up with all kinds of strange things that happen, and that, like I just talked about, the whole weight loss thing and how your body's trying to deal with the toxins associated with it. And if you can get it and walk through a lot of that stuff, your body will heal. I mean, the fact you can cut your hand and in a few days it heals up and goes away is amazing. It's just amazing that it does that. And so fascinated to look at that. So I've always been interested in complicated kinds of stuff, complicated machinery. So if I got to looking in the body, it's like, wow, that's the most complicated thing I have ever seen. So I'd really like to learn about that, understand how it all works and everything. So it's just fascinating.
So you think of nutrition as giving your body what it needs to do what it's supposed to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. You're not trying to overdo anything. You're just trying to let it do what needs to happen, like the magic that it can perform on its own.
Absolutely.
But the problem we're in right now, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, is that no one's allowing that to happen.
True. It's very difficult to get the nutrition that you need. If you look at food today, it's not really food. The vast majority of the stuff you go buy in the grocery store has a list of chemicals on it that you can't pronounce. That's not food. Mm-hmm. And your body's not going to treat that like food. It's going to look at that and go, oh, what am I going to do with this? I got this toxic thing. My liver gets into overdrive and said, we got to get rid of that. And so it's going to try to process it out. You give it so much all the time, and all the other things we're exposed to every day, radiation, the toxic chemicals in your cleaning thing, and all the stuff. We live in this chemical soup, so to speak. So your liver's working really, really hard to get rid of all that stuff and process it out. So it can't keep up with the trash. So it starts putting in the garage, and we start storing that stuff. And over time, you build up with this toxic load on your body, and it's doing the best it can with what it's got. So if you can do things that basically help reduce the toxic load and help your body clear it, you're going to be in a lot better shape, a lot better shape.
Do you have any opinions on how we've gotten to this point?
Well, yes. Essentially, a lot of it's about money. It really is about money, because if you look at the major food companies and the food you sit on the shelf, why does it have all of that stuff in it? Why those chemicals? Why that stuff? It's to increase its shelf life. It's basically a profit margin issue. If I can keep that on the shelf longer, my logistical approach and my logistical supply chain is going to be longer. I got more leeway in that supply chain. If it's a fresh vegetable, that stuff perishes really fast.
That's right.
So I got to turn it over quick. I got to move it fast. I got to land it on the shelf, get it to the customer, and all that. My time frames are very tight. If I can put something on that or process it somehow so I can get it on the shelf and let it sit there for a month, whoa, much, much better. Easier time frames, better supply chain, better profit margins on that product. So let's put something in it and change it to effect so that it will last longer on the shelf.
And I'm assuming that this lack of nutrition is what, you realizing this is what got you into these particular style of supplements that you like to use. In your mind, in your philosophy, it's I don't want to use the word easier. Correct me if I'm using bad terminology here, but it's easier to fill some of these voids with naturally based supplementation than to go pick all of your, kill your own fish for dinner and things like that, right? And grow all of your own vegetables and stuff.
Yeah. Well, a great example. Great example. Saw the research on this not too long ago. They found some spinach in the 1940s. They did some research on it, 1940s. And they looked at it. Here's the nutritional profile of that. And they did it and compared it to modern times, something more recent. I think it's maybe 10 years ago or something, but it's been fairly. So
1940 to 2010.
Yeah. So that time frame. So you take a look at that and it said, well, how much spinach would you need today to equal, like say how many cups of spinach today versus 1 cup from the 1940s? What would you think? Wild guess.
5.
30 to 50.
30
to 50 times more product, more volume today than you had available then. So what's happened is the nutritional component, the profile of the food you get on the shelf looks pretty. It's been made that way. It's been very much bred to look nice and to have high volumes. But nutritionally, not so much. They don't measure it. It's not what that's not what the farmers are moving. They're moving volume and looks pretty because that'll sell on the shelf. So if it's ugly and got a lot of nutritional content, people don't want it. They don't understand. They always look visually to see what it is. So that's part of the challenge with food today. You can't get good, high, nutritionally dense food essentially today. You just can't get it. Even organic, even those kinds of things can't get it to the level that you need. So, and that's why people say, well, I don't need these vitamin stuff. I don't need that. I get it from my food. 50, 100 years ago, yeah. Today, not so much. Just can't find it. It's not there. So the supplements we talk about when I recommend those kinds of things are food-based supplements. It's actually just concentrated food. One of the key product suppliers we have, their farm is up in southeast Wisconsin. And so they've been up there almost 95 years, 1929. And they've been growing stuff, and their whole profile on the food they produce is all about the nutritional content. They look at the vitamins and minerals in it. They don't care about volume, how much they produce. It's all about how good it is, the quality of it. And they take the stuff and they'll process it. Like I was visited the farm a couple of months ago, and they were harvesting buckwheat leaf. So they grew buckwheat. It's not really wheat. It's just that's part of its name, but it's buckwheat leaf. And they would harvest just enough they could process that one day. That's all they brought in. And they brought it in, squeezed it, juiced it and everything, preserved it, and then processed it through. And the idea was all about preserving the nutritional content. They didn't want to sit around and oxidize and lose its value. So they're very careful in terms of how they process it and get it in there. So they basically dry it and concentrate it into a pill. So I would say if you want a good quality C vitamin C, you can go out and cut your buckwheat every morning and chew it up. How about that? And people go, I don't have buckwheat. I don't have to do that every day. Or I can give it to you in a concentrated form that you can utilize on a regular basis. And so that's why the whole food nutrition is really important. It really gives you the key things you need for your body, all the building blocks you need.
So the past week or two since we met, I've just been using the term like natural supplements.
Right.
But what you're saying is they're food-based.
Food-based, whole food-based supplements.
Yes.
That's key. So because you can call anything natural. If you look, there's
That's
no
fair. That's a
FDA
great point.
requirement to say what natural means. And so they could go to a supplement company. You can go buy supplements off the shelf. Go down to your local vitamin store, and most all of them are synthetic. And what that means is, and they say, oh, they're all natural. Well, they probably derived them from some sort of food source, then processed them and fractionated the chemical out and drove the chemical out into this nice white powder. That's not really food, anymore. It used to be. So you can say it's all natural. It came from a plant. But in reality, what you've done is you've taken the food and sliced off and only deal with one small chemical component. Okay, and that's the problem, because your body can't process that very well. It might short term, you might have some good results short term, but over time, your body looks at that and says, okay, well, that's enough of that. Where's the rest of it? Good example is vitamin C. I'll give you my vitamin C story. Vitamin C is a lot like a taco. Okay,
Tacos.
So yeah, you like tacos?
Yeah.
They're awesome. And if you think about it, that's what you're going to want. So if you take a taco, you got a taco shell. Right, and then you got pico de gallo in there, a little bit of meat, some cheese, little lettuce, and some a little bit of sauce, good sauce. So what's vitamin C? If you go find it in orange juice or in an orange, or in they're actually where they really discovered it was peppers. So if I took that and isolated it there and started to drive down what's in it, so it's actually got ascorbic acid. Okay, that actually represents the taco shell. And you've got ascorbigen, which is a protein-bound version of it, P factors, J factors, K factors. There is isoflavonoids. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that actually makes up vitamin C. That's the taco. And that, like the meat in there, there's tyrosinase is an enzyme that's in there. It's got a copper molecule right in the middle of it. So that's all what vitamin C is. But if you go to vitamin C today, you walk down to the vitamin store and you open it up and look on the bottle, it says ascorbic acid. That's it. That's all that's in it. So that's just the taco shell. And it's antioxidant. So the ascorbic acid's job is to protect the stuff inside so it doesn't oxidize and break down. So it's the shell. So do you want a taco or do you want a taco shell? Better yet,
thing.
How about 10 taco shells? No, wait. I'll give you 1,000 taco shells, 1,000 milligrams of ascorbic acid for your vitamin C. Or do you want the whole food version, which is the whole taco?
You want the whole
That's
taco?
my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be better for you. And so what
taco shells are pretty good.
Yeah,
but they're a lot better.
Yeah, but 1,000
as
of
a
them?
whole taco, but as a whole thing.
Yeah, that doesn't make the vitamin C you need.
Yeah.
So, I don't need 1,000, thank you. It's, So that's the difference, really, and as I using vitamin C as an example in terms of how it actually works.
Yeah, I've always thought of, and I'm assuming that most people, when you think of supplements, you just assume they are food derived, but that's not the case. If you're going down to the store, even if you're going to like an actual nutrition store.
Oh yeah.
How can you tell? Like, is there certain labels you're looking for?
If you look on the label and you roll over and look on the back, and it's got a whole lot of individual components and a whole lot of great big numbers, what they've done is they put in synthetic isolates to build this vitamin. So for instance, you go for your B complex, right? I want a good B vitamin. So you go in there, Scott, and it got B1, B2, B3, B6, B12. What happened to 4 and 5 and
I've always
7,
wondered that.
8, 9, and 10?
Yeah, there's like B12.
B12 is like the one that everyone knows. I feel
Everyone
like,
knows.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell you the story about B12 in a minute. But so with that, if I've got that vitamin, where's the B4? It's missing. They can't synthesize it. They haven't been able to successfully, or if it's way too expensive to synthesize. So they put in B1, B2, B3, B6, and some other things, And so now what they've done is they don't call them B1, B2, B3 because everybody goes, where's 4, 5, and 6?
They have
So they just change it to thiamine and riboflavin, and so they change it to their chemical names and put it in there and say, oh, it's a great B vitamin. Well, you can take the B vitamins, but what about your body says, okay, great, thank you. I got 1, 2, 3, and I need 4, 5. Okay, here's 6, great. And so it starts to use those. And over time, it says, this is too much. I need the rest of it. So it starts to treat those excess chemicals as toxins. I gotta get rid of them. You're giving me way too much 1, 2, and 3. Choking me on 1, 2, and 3. I need the rest of it. So the body over time will start to process them out, and get rid of them. And so everybody says, well, you're just peeing them out. Exactly. You are. Your body's getting rid of them because it doesn't have the full spectrum. It can't use them all as food.
So what are we looking for on a label of a whole foods derived supplement?
Ideally, you're looking for what is the food that they concentrated. And so some of it gets to looking at what kind of components you want. Like I mentioned buckwheat leaf before. Buckwheat leaf's got some great nutritional components in it, and that's the key element in some of our supplements. But to a certain extent, if you're shopping by labels, they're going to sell you a label. That's the key. So in understanding what it's made of and how it works. I mean, you can look at the labels on the products we have, and they're like, this doesn't have anything in it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is how do you know what vitamin? Do you need to go do your own research and figure out?
Do some of your own research, ask
Okay.
somebody and take a look at it and see what results they've gotten from the vitamins and stuff like that. That's the hard thing about it. So
yeah, because in an over-the-counter supplement situation, they are doing all that stuff for you, which feels nice.
Oh yeah, look at that, man!
Yeah.
It's got 1 million of these and 1,000 of those, and this is probably good.
Yeah.
And our whole mindset of bigger's better, more's better, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I did know that more is not always better. I have kind of learned that.
True.
And I don't know a ton about supplements, but I have a base knowledge,
Absolutely.
And I do know that more is not always better. And I've actually just, I'm a personal trainer, right? And as a personal trainer, I don't make any supplement recommendations anymore at all. I tell people, get blood work done, get testing done and things like that, which we're going to go over some tests.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
very curious.
absolutely.
I have lots of questions, but before we get into that, why are over-the-counter supplements the way that they are, so easily accessible, but then these food-derived supplements, like what you're talking about, seem to not be? Is it a cost factor? Are these supplements you're talking
Well,
about?
they will be more expensive because it's and that's part of the game. Remember, it gets back to money. And so the synthetic food supplements that the synthetic vitamin supplements you buy on the shelf, all the stuff that's got all the labels and all the numbers and stuff, the vast majority of the core chemicals are all produced by the same handful of chemical companies that the pharmaceutical industry uses. That's where the source of all that stuff is. So it's all coming from the same place. They say, oh, we'll sell you drugs. All right, we'll sell you vitamins. Doesn't matter. We make all that stuff. And so, but food-derived stuff is much harder to do. Remember, I just mentioned that, you go in and they process just enough to get done for the day. That's not a high-margin business. I mean, to do that, the amount of labor and effort and all that stuff. So they're going to be more expensive as you try to get very high quality and food-dense, nutrient-dense food squished into a little pill or a capsule that you can take on a regular basis. So that's the biggest challenge with it. And if you I can buy 55-gallon drums of ascorbic acid. Put it in the thing. Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
And put it in there and make lots of margin. I can make a lot of money. Put a fancy label on, put a great big number on the back, good advertising. There we go.
It's a volume play.
Yeah, it's a volume play. It's a margin play and the rest of that. So that's why the stuff that we talk about in the whole food supplements, it tends to be more expensive, but you're looking really for great results. And some of these have been around 100 years.
Do you think that it is scalable? Can we get these good, high-quality supplements to more people? And what would that look like?
Yes, it is. I absolutely think it is. But it gets to the whole same problem about food in general. In terms of industrial food production today, really is all about volume and moving things, and we basically even the meat processing pots. You bring cattle in, you put them in a feedlot, you fatten them up, and you move them through as fast as you can. They've got regenerative farming approaches that really look at pasture raised, and they move them every year, every day, multiple pastures, and the different ways that they can do it. All are profitable. It is possible, but the mindset is such that, and the rhetoric is such that, oh, you can't make money doing that. You have to do it this way. And you have to pump chemicals and process them through to make money for you.
What needs to happen to get this mindset thing fixed?
A lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of people. There's a guy named Joel Salazar. He has a farm out in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. And he is on a major campaign to tell people about that. And he does that. They've gone and they do regenerative processing. They process their own food, their own animals and all that, and have great results. The food's very healthy and all that. And he says, I'll show you the numbers.
Yeah, I've heard.
We can make it work.
Is it Salatin is his last
Salazar,
name?
I believe is his last name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about, and there are some more of these things.
Yeah.
But to get the information out to everyone, and for whatever reason, people nowadays are very skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the norm is,
Right.
it's very difficult to get them to like look in a different direction.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think information is so important. There is a regenerative ranch in like East Texas in Fredericksburg called Rome Ranch, and they will host. I don't know exactly what they call it, but they would have what they have buffalo out there instead of cow mostly, and so they'll have a live butcher of it all, and it's like not to be like, oh, we're killing this buffalo, it's crazy. No, it's like it's teaching you from farm to table like where it's coming from, and it's like, man, you're a lot more appreciative and informed on what you're eating. It's
because vast majority of people don't have any idea where their food comes from. It comes in a plastic tray with a cover on it, right?
Yeah.
They don't grow those out in the field. There's a process to get that stuff there.
That, and I'm a victim of this as well. It is easy to forget
it is
where food comes from and how difficult it actually is to get these things. So, when we complain about high prices of food, well, it probably should be kind of high.
Yeah. To really get good quality stuff, that you end up paying a premium for that. That's true.
But we need to accept that.
Yeah.
It's
It's part of what, and a good thing that I would recommend is, and the best possible way you could do it is get to know the people that grew your food or raise the animals that you eat. If you can meet them, and I've done that. There's a guy, Harvest Hills Ranch out in East Texas, and I buy a lot of our beef and chicken from him.
I'd love the contact.
Oh, yeah,
Please.
he's a great guy. And he's a nutritionist guy and works for one of the nutrition companies. And I've been out there and actually gone to the farm tour and walked around. And he said, that's our cows right there. And this is how we do them. And talked about the process they raise them. You walk through, you see the chickens, you see all the kind of stuff. And he describes how he raises them and the process they use and how careful they are with all the things that they do. So it's like, oh, I know the guy that raised the animals that I'm going to eat.
Yeah, that is so cool. I respect that so much.
Yeah.
We bought a cow, half a cow last year. And we need to we ran out I don't know, it's been a couple of months now, and I've gone back into the bad habit of just going
buying
back
at the
to
store. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to buy one, grass fed is important, and grass finished is another thing to take a look for, because what they'll do is they may put them on the pasture to start with, but they'll bring them into a feedlot. And the problem with bringing them into a feedlot is when you feed a cow grain, that's not their normal diet.
Right.
That's not something they find out. They might run across a grain, a little bit of here and there in the grass that they're eating. But if you feed them 100% grain, it changes their whole microbiome, and it shifts it to more pathogenic bacteria. And so that shifts it. And then you put them in this confined space, and they poop in the feedlot, but they're in it. They're not moving away from it on a regular, so they're standing in it, or it's very close. So the chances for contamination go up and all of that kind of stuff. That's why they pump them full of antibiotics, because they put them in an environment where they're going to be sick. And so they've got to do something to keep them from dying in the feedlot.
How do you feel about, do you cook a lot? Are you a cook?
Oh yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. How do you feel about, this is a little off topic, but I'm curious of your opinion. I've done my research. I've looked into this because when we bought the cow, we did go with a grass-fed, grain-finished.
Grain-finished, okay.
We went with grain-finished, and I'll tell you why, and then I'd like to hear your thoughts. And we went with that route because supposedly it is much easier to cook, and the flavor's a little bit better. Right. Those are the two kind of main things. I was worried about, in a grass-fed and grass-finished situation, the steaks being really tough, not being very flavorful. Do you think that's valid or?
It is.
Okay.
To be honest, it is.
Uh-huh.
Grass-fed, grass-finished beef won't have as much marbling, won't have as much fat in the meat itself. So it tends to be tougher because if you take a good ribeye steak, it's got all that white speckling in it. That's the marbling in there. How did they get that? Well, they put them in a feedlot and fed them grain and fattened them up so they get fat. They put on a lot of fat and it pushes it into the muscle. And that's where you get the very moist, tender kind of stuff. So grass-fed, grass-finished is going to taste different and actually cook different. So you need to learn a little bit of cooking it differently and so forth with that. But with that perspective, you get a healthier meat product in the end of it.
So there's some cooking techniques that can overcome.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
It's
maybe
slower and slower
Okay.
tend to be better for the grass-fed. If you try to cook fast, it'll end up being tough. But there's some techniques you can do, and it may change the way you take a look at that. And some of it is just changing your palate.
Sure. Yeah.
A little
that's
bit of
fair, too.
I'm used to having more of a beefy flavor than you might get with your classic steaks that you end up.
Yeah,
with.
I'd love the contact of your guy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then because I'll be looking, to get something for sure. And do they do chicken?
Yep. They got chickens. They got
Okay.
turkeys. They got chicken eggs. So I don't hardly eat store-bought chicken eggs anymore.
Yeah, we buy from that in Santa Fe, that Ken's Hens.
Yep.
You heard of that guy?
Yep.
Yeah, we eat his eggs.
Yep, those are good, and they're raising them the right way.
Awesome.
Ideally, if you could get them unwashed, that would be perfect.
Like the eggs aren't washed. I've not heard of this.
Oh yeah.
Is that-
All the eggs I get, the chickens lay them, and they put them in a carton and give them to unwashed.
what's the problem with washing them?
Well, as soon as you wash them, you break the. There's actually a coating that the chicken puts on it. That's an unwashed chicken egg can sit on the counter for weeks.
There's no bacteria issues or anything with
Nope,
this?
that's sealed basically, unless it's cracked, of course. But if it's a whole egg, it'll sit out on the counter. You don't have to refrigerate it.
It doesn't
or
have to be
anything.
refrigerated?
No,
Wow.
nope.
Interesting.
They wash them to pasteurize them.
Okay.
And so when they do that, it's the whole idea they're worried about bacteria buildup on it, and then you have to refrigerate them at that point, and they'll start to deteriorate.
Okay.
So yeah.
Huh.
So,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
All right. Well, tomorrow I'm fasting.
Oh, there you
Eating
go.
unwashed eggs.
Yeah,
They're
I'm
washed
dirtying all my eggs.
Well, you gotta know where they're from. So go get a good source.
Yeah, it's
But,
got to be a good source, right?
Yeah,
The sourcing of the stuff is very important.
Oh, yeah,
right?
that's the key.
Yeah.
If you know who's growing it and how and you trust them, and that's part of it. It's building a relationship with the farmer and saying, okay, I see what you're doing, and I trust you and understand you, and I know you personally. Then I feel good about buying their
making
product.
the purchase.
Yeah, buying stuff from them.
Yeah.
Because right now you don't know where your stuff comes from. It could be, somebody in Iowa, could be somebody in Argentina. You don't know how.
Yeah, most of it's out of the country.
Yeah,
from
a
my
lot of stuff gets
understanding.
brought in.
Yeah, I feel like I never have thought about like where. So I thought supplements for the longest time were just like supplements were good. Like you were saying about vitamin C earlier.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
a great
just
point
like,
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
just would go and get HEB supplements, like store bought, whatever, not thinking much of it. Now I'm like second guessing that like heavily.
Oh yeah, actually, I've seen some of the research, and long-term synthetic supplement use reduces your lifespan.
No, damn. That would suck. Jeez.
Yeah.
It's because the concentrations aren't what your body actually needs.
Right.
Is that
And
accurate?
Yeah, and so you're basically processing these chemicals, and biggest long-term risk is probably more like cancer kinds of things.
Interesting.
Because cancer shows up in a lot of different things as a long-term effect for things.
Well, I feel like there's not too much negativity around. Most of it's like what Sean said,
Yeah.
like supplements good, right?
Yeah.
But there is like, I have heard the argument, I don't want to take supplements. I just wanted to get it from my food. And you've kind of already answered this, but I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to make sure that I made this connection that the problem with that is what you're saying is the food now, fruits, vegetables are not actually very micronutrient dense like
Right.
they once were.
Yeah, they're missing a lot of the nutritional density. Yeah, if you go look at fields out there, they sit, they don't grow a lot of weeds. They're pretty sterile. They've sterilized the fields, and they've processed and they forced the plants to grow by pushing in, basically chemicals.
So there's nothing negative about taking supplements. It's not, you're not a failure because you're not getting it from
No.
your food. Because I've heard, these are types of arguments that I've heard against supplements. I can get it, I don't need supplements. I can get it from my food. I don't need to fill it fill voids in that way.
Probably the handful of pills thing is what I hear sometimes
Yeah, that
too.
too.
They're
I
like,
don't want
"Oh,
to take a handful of pills, when, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the reality is that you're not getting it from the food.
That's true. Yeah. So my answer would be, okay, yeah, that's great. Let me see what you're eating. Let's take a look at your food. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, that stuff. Yeah. Let's take a look at the nutritional profile of that. Wow, it's missing all of these things. Where are you going to get that?
Well, speaking of, let's talk a little bit about how we figure that out. You guys have some various testing that you do, and we haven't even talked about Center for Champions. Maybe now, if you don't mind, maybe tell us a little bit about what Center for Champions specifically is, and then we can talk about some of these different testing that you guys do to figure these things out.
Okay. Well, Center for Champions is the place I work. I'm a holistic nutritionist. And so what that means really is we look at the whole body. So a lot of allopathic medicine today, mainstream medicine, the white coat guys and all that, they basically, you'll walk in, they'll run some tests, they look for a number, and with that number, they look over it and cross-reference it and say, here's the 3 drugs I can prescribe for that particular problem. My highest margins on number 1, so we're going to give you number 1 at this dose, and call me back when you have the next problem. So it's basically broken mechanics. You know, you're coming in as a broken car, and we just fix whatever you showed me, and you go back and do whatever you need to, and drive the way you want. You know, you don't have to worry about what you eat. You don't have to do all that kind of stuff. And the next time you're broken, we'll come back in and do that. So we really look at more lifestyle, diet, and supplementation as an entire picture for what's going on. So what are you doing? Let's take a look at your diet. Oh, look at that. Yeah, sugar, you know, and all the different things you're doing. Hey, let's talk about how we might reduce some of that. That's going to really keep you out of the diabetic cycle, which you're headed for today. And so that's part of, you know, lifestyle kinds of things we can look at, stress management kinds of things we can look at, and those kinds of things that will help you in general. So there's really nutrition, the diet kind of thing, and lifestyle kinds of things. And then we look really at what kind of nutritional supplements you might need based on shortfalls you might have, you know, that we see going on. And we could do different kinds of tests. I mean, there's a simple test you could do for a zinc, for instance. So zinc's real important. Everybody needs zinc. It's involved in like 300 different processes in your body. Your body uses zinc as an element real easy. There's a simple little taste test I can do. And you put a little dropper of this stuff in your mouth and tell me what you taste. And most people say, nothing. Tastes like water. I don't see anything. If you have adequate zinc levels, you'll make a face and go, oh, wow, that's nasty, because it'll taste very metallic. So what your body's doing is it's an indicator that tells me what your zinc levels are. I can go back and verify that by running RBC zinc, red blood cell zinc in your blood test. Or there's another thing we do called hair analysis, which people go, what's that? You know, most of mainstream medicine does not use that. But hair analysis really gives me all your mineral levels. So it'll tell me what your calcium, magnesium, manganese, you know, copper, iron, a whole bunch of the major minerals you need, and a lot of the trace minerals. And we can look at that and see how you're doing, what they should be and where they are. So what's so interesting about hair analysis is it basically looks at what's going on in the tissue. So inside the tissues themselves, because the hair basically is from the tissues, and it generates this long follicle, which we can cut off and take a look at that thing and say what's it got in it, and at what that cell is producing on a regular basis. It's a great indicator of general tissue kind of mineral analysis. And so with that, the problem with trying to do it in the blood, which everybody thinks the blood's, we'll just test that in the blood. The body will sacrifice tissue over blood. It'll make your blood right, even if it has to steal from the tissues to do it, because the blood is so critical. It's absolutely vital to life. So it'll maintain the pH exactly right, and all of those mineral levels at the right levels at the expense of the tissue. So if I can look at tissue, I can start to see, you're trending that way. I can start to see the future of what you've got going. Blood tells me what's happening now. If it's bad enough to show up in the blood, the tissues are long past
That's the thought that was just going through my mind.
Yeah, you're already past the problem. So if I look in the tissues, I can see future. I can take a look ahead of time and start to see. So the ratios are real important as well, like your adrenals, how they work, your sex hormones and how they're processing. You could look at zinc and copper ratios will tell you how those are processing well. So there's different ratios that we can look at that gives us an indication of what's going on in the body and where it's headed, you know.
And these ratios being off, dosages being off, levels being off is better.
Right.
Ratios or levels, either one, lead a variety of issues, right? Like how do you, I'm assuming that most of your patients that come in have one problem or another. And
usually
then
it's a combined set of problems because people are sick, have been at this a while, and we're living this kind of messy, toxic world that we live in. And so what we end up finding is it's kind of a lot like an onion. You know, you say, okay, all right, we see these kind of things, and we'll peel that off. All right, we've gotten that fixed. Oh, here's the next thing. So you kind of get, as you dig down in, you basically start to unfold things because the body's doing the best it can. It's doing what it's got to work with. So it'll cover things up or work with things or steal from here to make this work. And so the surface, as you get to that, you start to solve that. Then you say, oh, I see what you're doing at this level. Let's see if we can get rid of that or, you know, help correct that or bring it around where we need it and then get to the next level.
I saw on your website, I think it was some type of heart test.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Oh, it's called a heart sound recorder.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what it is. And it's a simple test. We could do it sitting right here, you know. In fact, I got one in the car. We could come back.
Oh, dude.
I could run it on you. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes.
I'm interested.
Okay. So it's very simple to do. And what it is there's a little sound sensor about the size of a little hockey puck, you know.
Okay.
Smaller than that. And what it does is we strap it on the chest in 4 different places, and it listens to the heart valves as they open and close. So it's a sound thing, but it really is below hearing level because it's down, you know, below what you could audibly hear. So I could put a stethoscope on you and I wouldn't be able to hear the same things that this will get. It's more like a seismometer, like an earthquake detector. So it's very low frequency sound. So what it tells me is I can look at that, and I look at each of the individual valves, and from the waveforms that it looks at, we can tell about nutritional issues you have. There'll be one for sure that almost everybody I see has. It's a vitamin B deficiency. Actually, B4. One of the ones.
What do you know?
How about that? One of the ones that's not in the supplements you can get. A vitamin B4. And it is all about electroconductivity in the heart and how well the electrical processes work and how it'll contract and function effectively.
How do you determine if someone should take this test or not? Because I'm assuming these tests, you have to pay for these tests, right? So like, how does someone determine if I should take this test or not? Do you, by their symptoms, do you have an idea of what could be wrong and then you use the test to confirm it? Or like, what does that process look like?
Well, typically, the kinds of things we could look at would be, we could ask a lot of, let me go back a second and say, essentially when you come in for a new patient visit, I'd sit down and ask you 200 questions, literally. That many. Like, okay, do your eyes tear up? Do they have twitches? Bro. You know, do they have, okay, let's talk about your ears. And so basically work from the top of your head all the way to the bottom of your feet. Skin things, hand issues, core body stuff. You know, I get a lot of heart palpitations, you know, a lot of fluttering in my heart when I lay down at night. When I lay down at night and my heart just pounds. Let's take a look. Maybe we should. So if you end up with heart sounding things, or their cardiologist said they put me on, you know, beta blockers for my heart problems, well, let's take a look. So those are kind of things that when I say, maybe we could take a look at the heart and look at the outputs of it and make some recommendations. And oftentimes we can see with the results of that, we can get off those cardiac meds.
Wow.
Just, you know, get the correction done and put in the nutrition. If the heart, and one of the key things about the heart was so interesting is it gets first priority on all your vitamins. So if I can see something missing in the heart, you've got it everywhere. Because the heart's vital. You know, if you don't pump blood, you're done. So it's got to run, and the heart's got to, so it gets priority. The whole body will prioritize the heart and the blood for everything because it's so critical to life.
So you're getting an idea of the symptoms.
Right.
And then kind of formulating an idea of what tests could be best for this person.
Yep.
And we run the tests, figure out what's good, bad, and different, and then the supplementation recommendation or nutrition lifestyle stuff first,
lifestyle
right?
And nutrition, you know, diet kinds of things. Let's see if we can adjust that. And then, then the idea is to come back and take a look. All right, let's take a look. Now it's been a month or two, and how's it going? Do you still have that? Well, yeah, that's gone. Or no, this other thing showed up. Okay. So yeah, my eyes are not watering like they used to. Okay, great. We've got it. We hit something that works well. And so the idea behind it is not to have you, taking, 250 pills every day for the rest of your life.
Right.
Part of it is you get those nutritional things, the shortfalls kind of corrected and brought back in line. Do we have the dietary things that we need to keep it going and keep you in good shape for that? And maybe some that you might need to take on a regular long-term basis. But you can get some of the stuff corrected. Like we'd work on zinc for a while and say, oh, I really have low zinc levels. So we'd put you on a zinc thing called zinc chelate. And we do that, and a lot of times it takes a while. It might take months to bring that up. And so then, all right, now we do the test again. Hey, all right, your zinc levels are good. So we can back that off and just go to some sort of maintenance level or some minor level. We don't have to push so hard in a particular thing to get that working.
In most of these tests, do you do them in conjunction with the blood?
Yeah, the blood
time?
is always good.
Yeah.
We don't have to have blood to get started.
Okay.
It's good to have it. And if you do have, we might take a look at. We'll take a look at that. And again, I mentioned those ranges. We want to look at those healthy ranges.
Sure.
Look at those numbers, and that'll give us an indication of where things are off or where you're headed with different kinds of stuff. And then maybe over time, typically blood work, you try to do it at least once a year. Mm-hmm. Ideally, if you're working on something, it's about every 4 months because that's about how long it takes to replace all your blood cells. All your red blood cells basically change out at about 4 months.
Really? Like in a healthy person or in all
Everybody.
people?
Yeah, that's
everybody,
normal.
no matter what.
Everybody's blood cells you basically get at the end of 120, about 4 months, you get a whole new set. Your body's constantly replacing those blood cells. It's a regular part of a normal process. So if I do all that, and I could take a look at new blood, so to speak, in about 4 months. Okay, we flushed out all the stuff that was there before, or it's got a chance to process out. So where are we at? How's it look now?
Wow.
So it's a great time frame to do something. 4 to 6 months is good.
Yeah. So if we have blood work, a blood test, the hair test, and the heart test, is that like the cream of the crop?
That's a lot of the really good stuff. That will give you pretty good stuff. There are other things you could do when you get into more specialty stuff. So in other words, you've really tired, my hair's falling out, I got dry skin issues and all that.
So it's like specifics.
Yeah. So that sounds like thyroid problems.
Okay.
Let's take a look. So the blood work, there's lots of blood work. There's hundreds of markers you can do. And you can spend a whole lot of money on a lot of stuff in blood work. So we have a kind of standard set that says, this is the most common things. But you said, okay, that sounds like thyroid kind of issues. So let's run a thyroid panel. So I'll then, ask for a broader kind of thyroid numbers. There's a TSH, T3, T4, free T3, free T4. There's a number of different things. That says, okay, let's look more specifically at that and see how your thyroid is functioning and where it's falling down. And say, oh, look at that. So their thyroid is underactive, And let's see if we can do some supplementation to help bring that online.
Wow. Sean, do you have any questions?
I did, and I kind of forgot.
There was
a lot though.
I
There
feel
was
like
a
I've
lot.
had so many, and I know that I missed some, so I was curious.
Oh, sure.
I guess it was. I lost it. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm
They'll
sorry.
come back to you.
Yeah.
They'll come back to you.
Yeah, because I'm just I'm very curious. I've always been interested in what's going on inside of my body. Or not always is actually, that's not true.
Not true. Yeah.
In my adult life.
More recently.
Yeah. When I was younger, not so
bulletproof.
much.
You can do anything. No problem.
Exactly. But here recently, I'm like super interested in like what's going on inside my body, all the time. So these various tests are just always interesting,
Oh, yeah.
You did tell me that you had someone this morning that you ran some tests on, and you were going to mention something to me. I don't remember what it was exactly, but we were talking before.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 tests that we do in the office that are very simple.
Okay.
Very easy to do. One is I wrap a blood pressure cuff around their calf muscle in their leg. Okay. It's like, you taking the blood pressure of their leg? No. What we do is we take that blood pressure cuff and wrap it around the calf muscle, and then I pump it up. And I pump it up to the point it starts to pinch or hurt, and that level gives me an indication of what the calcium bicarbonate, the calcium levels are in the blood. If it's too low, it's something we need to take a look at. And they say, all right, well, we're going to recommend some calcium supplements for you. Now, don't go down to the drugstore and buy calcium supplements, because almost all of that stuff, the cheap stuff that you can get, is all calcium carbonate, which is limestone. It's a rock. Okay. Your body doesn't dissolve rocks very well.
Okay.
They don't. It takes 17 chemical steps to turn that from calcium carbonate to calcium bicarbonate, which is the stuff that's flowing in your blood.
Okay.
Takes too long. Most of the time, they go right through you. Yeah. Guys that clean out houses and stuff like that, they find the pills in the bottom of the porta potties.
Mm-hmm.
No kidding. It's
Wow.
like, what are those? It's calcium.
Straight through.
Yeah, straight through.
Yeah.
Go right through you. So it doesn't do any good. There's different ones that are better, more absorbable. The one we got in particular that we use is a calcium lactate. It's not a milk product. It's basically because of the processing that they use to create it. And it takes 2 steps.
Okay.
No,
And
man.
it's very fast, and it doesn't require a lot of stomach acid to get absorbed and break down. Okay, stomach acid is critical for digestion. That'd be one of the things we talk about in all those questions I would ask somebody. How's your digestion doing? You know, and what I'm getting at is how strong a stomach acid you've got. Okay, it's an important part of digestion. Without that, I can't. I can give you all the supplements in the world. I can't get them in. If you can't dissolve them and absorb them, it's not doing much good.
Yeah, and that's like the big problem with standard supplements is the absorption.
Oh yeah, absorption's typical.
Is not happening.
It's one of the critical aspects. So.
What was that other test? You said there was 2.
Oh, that was one. That's the calcium cuff
Yep.
test. So it tells me that. Another one is called a Ragland's test. It's a test that's been around a long time. So I take your blood pressure. You lay down on a table, get nice and comfortable, lay flat, and I talk to you a little bit. And that's why I do the cuff test, to get you to relax. So the whole idea is I give you 5 minutes or so to kind of downregulate. So what's happened is you lay down flat, and now your heart has to only pump blood about a foot tall, right? It doesn't have to work very hard, right? So you're laying flat. It just kind of pumps it to one end of the table to the other. And so then we take your blood pressure, and then I say, okay, stand up for me. And I immediately take the blood pressure again as soon as you stood up. So what's going on is your body has to upregulate. Said, oh, wait a minute, I got to pump blood 6 feet high down to the floor and back.
Against gravity.
Yeah, against gravity. And I got to upregulate. And so what we expect to see is there's this diastolic number and a systolic number. The systolic is the top number. Like somebody says, I got 120 over 80 is my blood pressure. The 120 is the systolic, and the 80 is the diastolic. So what I expect to see is both of those numbers to rise between 4 to 10 points. Sometimes it's, some people say 8 to 10, but typically a rise a little bit. Okay. And I expect the heart rate to come up just a little bit, if not much. Now, if they don't rise, and I've seen it where they stood up and their blood pressure drops. Okay. Overall, numbers come down. I've seen them drop 10, 15, 20 points. What does that tell me? Well, your adrenal glands are hurting. They cannot keep up. So what essentially your adrenal glands upregulate, they're the primary mechanism that'll kick it up, increase your blood pressure. So I got to pump blood to the top of your head, increase your heart rate a little bit. If it's not doing it, typically what I'll see is the heart rate will come up a lot. So your heart will start to pump faster. It can't push the blood to your heart, to your brain, so it's going to have to circulate faster. It's going to push more. And so that tells me you've got adrenal stress. Adrenal insufficiency is the medical term, but it's adrenal fatigue. Your adrenal glands are not keeping up with what's been going on, and that's very common with people.
How do we fix that?
Well, a couple of things. We can help with providing the adrenal glands the building blocks, the nutrition that they need. Big one, salt.
Interesting.
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
thought salt was bad for you.
It's not. Now, they'll talk about blood pressure and salt, and there's some correlation there, but not much. More of the problem is they'll say, well, don't eat salt, and that pushes you into a whole level of health problems. If you're on a low-salt diet, you've got a lot of potential health problems with that. So the problem is salt. Well, what is the salt we have? Well, it's that, the little girl, in
Right,
the little
with the
white
umbrella.
salt. Yeah, the little umbrella,
Yeah,
that one right there. And but if you take a look at that salt, what have they done to it? Okay, it's not the salt that we would expect to see. It doesn't come out of the ground that way. It doesn't come out of the ocean if I just,
Yeah, they
the salt-
sterilized it. Right?
Yeah, sterilize it. Absolutely. And it's white. So they've taken all of the stuff out of it. It basically purified. It's nothing but sodium chloride and a couple of things to keep it flowing well, like sugar and sodium dioxide. There's some other things they throw in there so it flows well. Not necessarily good for you, but, and they throw some iodine in there, say it'll be good for you.
You mean flows like out of the
Yeah, so it it doesn't stick and clump together.
Oh,
That's why they put that stuff in there. So you can shake it out of the shaker. It doesn't stick.
Huh.
But that's what it's for. It's all about processing. It's not about healthy stuff for you.
Mhm.
So the best salt is sea salt or some of the mined salt, the pink salt that you see.
Mhm.
Best one really is out of Raymond's out of Utah.
Raymond's real salt.
Yeah.
Ah, I like that stuff.
Yep, that's
Very
good stuff.
Very flavorful too.
Oh, yeah.
It's maybe it's a cost thing is why it's not more popular. People just go for what's cheap. You know,
Yep.
it's
Oh,
kinda
yeah.
what we were
Well,
talking
they
about
don't
earlier,
know.
but
They don't.
the flavor of some of those salts is so good.
I know, because it's got the minerals in it.
Yeah.
So when you're
Delicious.
thirsty, your body's looking for water, and what water it would expect to get would be spring water.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what you always had for thousands of years. Is spring water. Spring water's got a lot of minerals in it, and so when you drink relatively pure water, your body goes, "Well, that's nice. I got some water. Where's the mineral?
Mhm.
So can you drink some more?" And so you'll end up overhydrating and not getting the minerals you need. So putting in electrolytes is important. And sea salt or some of this mine salt, just put a pinch of that in your water.
Fills those voids
Oh
for
yeah,
you. Fills
it
those
does.
gaps.
It's great for that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Greg, lots of really cool stuff. I love the idea of food-based supplements
Oh, yeah.
versus synthetically created. Before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about your patients. Like, tell us what type of person would usually come see you? What types of things are common, things that you're helping overcome, stuff like
Okay. The best patient essentially are moms.
Mm.
They're the best ones to see. Women about 30 to 55, somewhere in that range, with kids is great because the moms make the health decisions in the family.
I love that.
They do.
So you're helping that. The reason you want this person as a patient is they're going to help the whole family.
They'll help the whole family. So
Yeah.
if they see results, they're going to come in because they are stressed. Their hair's falling out. They can't manage time things, all that, overweight, carrying extra weight, and a whole host of problems, hormonal problems, all those kinds of things. We can help with all that. And so they'll then bring the kids in. Say, okay, well, this is working great. So, but Johnny's just nuts. He's going crazy. He's got ADD. Let's talk about that. We can help with that. And so you can work with those kinds of things. And then ultimately, she'll tell the husband, all right, Joe, you need to go see him. And he's going to tell you to do stuff. You have to do it.
He's last on board.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because the guys are like, hey, man, I'm good.
I know. I already know.
Yeah, I'm
It's the same
bulletproof.
with us.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm fine. So yeah, those are the best patients because that really helps me help more people.
Sure.
I can help the
Love
whole
that.
family with that. If I come in and just talk to the guys, I help with a little bit of stuff, and that's good. But if I can talk to mom, she is going to help me help the kids, help the whole family, help grandma, help Aunt Sally, and all the rest of them. That's going to be a great chance to really have better reach
Yeah.
to get the nutrition and the opportunities that are out there. So,
And really make a difference with information, like we talked about
Absolutely.
earlier. That is how we overcome this mindset, kind of problem, quote unquote, that
Yep.
we have, and
Absolutely.
getting correct information out there. So, yeah, really appreciate that. How do we get a hold of you? How do we get a hold of Center for Champions? What does that process look like?
Okay. We've got a website, like everybody. It's called Center for, with the letters FOR, centerforchampions.com. That'll get you there. I have to look at my phone number. Let me pull out my.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Do y'all have an Instagram?
Yes, there's Center for Champions has an Instagram account.
Nice.
And the phone number for the office is 832-580-2046. We're in League City, little bitty house. It's a cute little place. We got a treatment room there. And so if you came by, you got to make sure you're looking at the address because there's not a lot of signage up front, but it's
Sure.
a nice little house. And all the ladies kind of come by. Oh, it's such a cute little place.
Everybody loves it, right?
Yeah, everybody loves it.
Sounds like
So-
something Denver would say.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
So-
Greg, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else, any final words before we wrap up that you'd like to say?
Well, I think really I kind of come back to our whole food philosophy. We really look at how do we help people with a nature first and drugs and surgery last kind of approach. I mean, those would be the last resorts. I mean, if you take a look at modern medicine, we're 4% of the population and use 50% of the world's drugs.
In the United States?
Absolutely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, huge.
Wow.
And so drugs are not necessarily bad. They're just way, way overused.
I think that's important too. I'm glad you said that. I think a lot of people, when they hear this out there we're talking about, they think that you are anti drugs, the anti pharmaceuticals, prescription, and that's not the case.
No. Actually, we have one of the best medical systems in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We are better than anybody, hands down, on crisis management, crisis medicine. I get in a car wreck. I am broken in pieces. I got body parts that need to get put back together. We're awesome. You can roll into an emergency room and wow, they're still alive, and they can keep you alive. They can put you back together. Long-term, chronic, things like diabetes and all the long-term stuff, not so much. And the problem is that the mainstream medicine, they really only have a limited toolbox. They just have drugs. That's their answer. The only thing they have in their toolbox. So they're going to prescribe what they think is going to get you their best. We've just got a better toolbox.
Yeah. I'm glad we're ending on that note, because again, I just want to reiterate how important it is that you, everyone that is talking about these food-based supplements and stuff like this, nobody is anti-drug. We just want to diminish the need for it.
Right.
And it is to still have it also.
Absolutely. You may need it to get started. I mean,
That's right.
There's people, the blood pressure's like, oh my gosh, you need to go to the emergency room.
Exactly.
Let's get you on some blood pressure meds, get you safe, get you okay.
And then implement these
Now,
things.
let's see what's going on. Why is that blood pressure so high? Let's help you do that, and then we can taper off the blood pressure meds and get you back to a healthy state.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg, with Center for Champions. Guys, make sure you like, subscribe for more stuff like this. Share with your friends if they need to hear this, and reach out to Greg if you need some help.
Yeah, awesome.
Peace out.